Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me clearly, and I hope that our Wi-Fi will sustain. I will talk now about upgrading existing cities with smart city components. We don't always have the chance to rebuild, or say to build a new city from scratch and make it a smart city. We are mainly dealing with already existing cities that could be equipped and upgraded with smart city components to follow certain objectives, and we come to this. First, we'll talk about the situation of existing cities worldwide, and then let us define and give the objectives of a smart city. Something about assessment mechanisms, a worldwide overview, city ranking, and UN initiatives, and then the different components of a smart city infrastructure, soft and hard infrastructure, a word on critical issues and challenges, and if time allows, I will give you some cases of smart city initiatives in Singapore, Barcelona, Montreal, Dubai, and also what Egypt thinks about smart cities. So, okay, the worldwide situation is characterized by a very rapidly growing and increasing growth in population. By 2050, we will expect to have something like 10 billion people on Earth. Along with this goes as well an increasing growth of urbanization. That means we will have, by 2050, 70% of people living in cities. And that means we will have a high concentration of resource demand, consumption, and pollution. Regarding Egypt, we are already now 3.2 million capita over the forecasted population number. So what has been forecasted 10, 20 years ago has been exceeded by 3.2 million as per now. In the same time, also here, we can see a significant migration from rural areas from south into the urban northern parts, with a high concentration in Greater Cairo. Significant development efforts to decentralize the population into new communities are underway. So the government is active in building new cities to relieve Cairo or Greater Cairo from ever-growing population. But this also needs some time and will take certainly a couple of years once people will be prepared to move outside of their common living areas. So the consequence problems are a scarcity of resources, a lack of housing, traffic congestion, unemployment, pollution, and general health risks, and others. We are feeling those consequences every day. I'm driving, for example, every day 100 kilometers to reach my working place on a very congested road, and I can speak what it means to have many people around. An approach to solutions on the long run, my personal opinion is I would dare a discourse if it is really needed to have population growth considered to be an unstoppable given development, or if there should not be done larger efforts to get away from this uncontrollable path, or seemingly uncontrollable path. In the near future, and I think as soon as possible, means are required to lower the impact of growing populations through better resource efficiency and resource saving. And this, in my opinion, automatically leads to the need of upgrading urban centers with smart technologies and applications, whatever it is available. Definition and objectives of a smart city. There is no commonly agreed definition of a smart city, but there are shared elements among the most prevalent definitions. For example, the usage of ICT, information and communication technologies. Everyone aims at improving the infrastructure and tries to ensure economic, social, and environmental sustainability. These are the commonly agreed shared elements, but there's no overall agreed definition of what a smart city actually is. But we will learn by example, and hopefully we get a bit nearer to this. objectives: inclusion of sophisticated ICT-based applications and services, contributing to greater energy efficiency, resource consumption, improved safety, increased well-being of inhabitants, and economic opportunities. Thus, the smart city development is imperative to which I had just alliterated. How to assess the smartness of a city? So there are different organizations. One of them is the ISO, the International Standardization Organization, and United for Sustainable Smart Cities Initiative, and the IMD, the Institute for Management Development, stationed in Lausanne and who have initiated or developed an Smart City Index here to rate the efforts and achievements of communities to reach certain limits. I will not go all the details, the time will not allow for that, but for example, the ISO rates and assesses community infrastructure, mainly for energy, water, transportation, waste, and ICTs, against using enhanced technological performance that is designed, operated, and maintained to contribute to a sustainable development and community resilience. No, this goes wrong. So, the United for Sustainable Smart Cities Initiative has developed KPIs, key performance indicators, to quantify the efforts and also allow a listing or a rating system with three main dimensions: economy, environment, and society and culture, and also defined sub-dimensions that all can be rated. The IMD Smart City Index, developed every year, compares 102 cities against usage of technology in 5 key areas, which are health and security, mobility, activities, work and school opportunities, that means education, and also governance, and has developed certain indicators which are then rated and allow for a certain ranking. In 2020, like in the years before, Singapore has topped the list, is considered a AAA smart city, worldwide leading. Number 2 has been Helsinki in Finland, Zurich, Auckland, New Zealand. Number 5, Oslo. 6, Copenhagen. You can see quite a high concentration in the northern part of Europe. Geneva, and then we have Taipei, Taiwan. Number 9, Amsterdam. Bangkok with a CCC has ranked 71. In 2019, Singapore was already number 1, but there was a little bit of reshifting here. And I'm quite happy that my old hometown, Düsseldorf in Germany, has been among the first 10 cities. They have been fallen back in 2020 to rank number 13. But anyway, the total 102 cities are listed here. We can see Cairo on rank number 99. Rank number 99 in terms of smartness worldwide, but also other cities: Sofia, Mexico, Kiev, Cape Town, Athens, Rio de Janeiro, are not very far away. So we are in a group of cities worldwide where I see, okay, our ranking is not very good at the moment, but this offers in the same time also a very large potential for improvement. So I see such kind of challenges also as a chance. Little changes in certain fields will already give us a much higher ranking and will improve, hopefully, the living of the citizens to a certain degree. So coming now to a small repetition of the SDGs, and I will confine myself to number 9 and number 11. Number 9 is mainly about infrastructure, industrialization, financial services, and sustainability. Infrastructure, our field as civil engineers, is something we have to think about, but it's not only civil. The interesting part, and I found this out when I prepared the presentation, again, that smartness of a city brings together many disciplines. It's not only civil engineering or not only ICT or not only IT. Many disciplines have to come together and present in the end a conglomerate that will present a smarter approach. So the SDG number 9 talks about infrastructure, for example, and the 11 aims at an inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable city. Urban challenges currently are congestion, rising pollution, lack of adequate housing, lack of funds for energy, basic services, declining transportation systems, amplification of challenges, rise of population, urban cities, etc., etc. So we will reach something like 7 billion people, almost the entire world population today in 2050, only in cities. So what are now the components of a smart city? Number one, smart infrastructure. That includes also here public transportation. In opposite to the individual way of transportation, public transportation system, a public mass transportation system, I should say, water and wastewater management. Water will become an ever decreasing commodity, and especially here in Egypt, we will face challenging times, I would guess, with increasing population and in the future with less water supply. Energy efficiency. I've read recently an article and I was surprised to learn that in Egypt, for example, the energy consumption per unit of production is something like 3 to 4 times higher than in industrialized countries like Northern Europe, due to lack of efficiency in energy use. We're aiming at citizen service to be improved, public well-being and public health, security, pollution control. In other words, here also the components and characteristics of a smart city: smart mobility, smart living, we will come to this, smart government, smart environment, smart economy, and I would say also very importantly, smart people. We cannot expect big improvements of nicely installed smart city applications and systems while not having people educated to use those systems as users and to maintain and further develop them as operators. So this is something very important we have to keep in mind. It's not about, the human resource that needs follow to be able to take benefit of those smart systems. A smart city and a smart infrastructure and smart devices in the end go back to ICT. So I can have a nice hard infrastructure, let's say a nice bus system or a subway system. If it is not well equipped and not well integrated with a strong ICT system, it will not be smart. It can be very efficient as a hard infrastructure, but what makes it in the end smart and therefore more successful is ICT. So what are now smart cities infrastructure systems? First of all, we differentiate between hard and soft infrastructure. I bring here the fields of energy, water, waste, transport, and landscape. The question can be, is it now hard or soft? I would say it's always both. We need hard infrastructure systems to be equipped with the soft part in order to become really smart. That counts for energy systems, that counts for any kind of water and waste systems, of course, transport So what we think about smart always are signboards with digital information in subway stations or over highways and parking systems, etc. But it is actually far more. If we go back to the objectives, we can see where do we want to reach at and what are then our means in order to have a chance reaching our objectives. The IT infrastructure services, of course, are an overarching umbrella over all these systems. Basically, everything has to be managed in terms of data. All the network servers, security systems, application management, everything is subject to IT management systems, otherwise it wouldn't work. Smart mobility and transportation. At the forefront, smart public transportation. I remember when I went to Singapore the first time, that was in 1997. In 1997, I stopped over in Singapore, and I was amazed to see hardly any private cars in the street. Some privileged individuals, yes, they were driving the, but I would say 90% or more of the population was in a very efficient, very safe, and very clean public transportation system. It was amazing to me in those days to see such kind of a community going smoothly without any interruption and absolute safety by using, for example, smart public transportation systems. So the reduction of the individual transportation in private cars and the replacement by public transportation systems is a core part of the city becoming smarter. Then, of course, the guidance and management of traffic by intelligent transportation systems. Components are traffic lights, cameras, road buried queue detectors, etc. And of course, a central control system with public addressing and traffic guidance. The smart parking systems. I remember, I'd say everyone knows how many kilometers and how much time someone can consume if he really has to, or she has to really go downtown Cairo to and find parking space. So if we have a smart system that tells where to go, time and fuel and less exhaust, and will be altogether happier to have something very quickly. In graphics, advanced traffic management systems, advanced vehicle highway systems, commercial vehicle operations, advanced public transportation systems, advanced traveler information systems, all this comes together and forms in the end an ITS. Example, parking. The driver of this vehicle will have an app. The app knows by GPS or GIS, knows where an empty parking slot is available, tells the driver parks in, and pays via the app automatically his parking fee. That is also the other side. These systems, of course, cost money, but they also save effort, and they save resource, and they save pollution, and would guarantee to the community also a good income. In the case of Barcelona, this is a major contributor to the city's budget, that parking fees are raised much more efficiently and without disturbance. So it is like a VAT being paid with every good I'm going to buy. Smart energy grid or energy services, starting with the energy grid, analyzing data on the consumers will give a chance to adjust the supply. So a supply and demand optimization within a community, within a state, within a larger city, within a region, within an international community as well, is part of using the resources and the capacity in a more efficient way. I will have higher efficiency if I have a power plant being used by 70–80% rather than by 25%, and sometimes I need 110%. So the equalization of demand and supply within a region or a defined area is part of the smartness of a city or of a region. District heating and cooling, here comes the economy of scale into the playfield. A larger central plant has generally a higher efficiency than a larger number of decentral small aggregates or small plants. That's a fact. And the basic idea for district heating came actually from Eastern Europe in the 60s and 70s, where whole cities were heated by the exhaust heat from power plants. So they were basically the front riders on this issue. In Egypt, we have, for example, a district cooling in the smart village on the Cairo Alex Desert Road. There we have a large central cooling plant, and that supplies the entire smart village with chilled water to run the air conditions. Smart street lighting equipped with energy-saving devices, for example, LED, renewable energy systems, solar energy-based, and sensor-based utilization for minimal power consumption. That's how a district cooling system would work. We will have a district cooling plant that produces very cold water. This cold water will be distributed to the consumers in buried, of course, very isolated pipes. Will reach the fan coil units and will translate into cooled down air. The water will then be circulated back to the cooling plant and reaches at a higher temperature to be then cooled down again. And as per the demand of the building, and we have it here also in the GOC, that's the principle that works with the chillers on the rooftop. They produce cold water. This will be distributed to the consumers in every room and will be translated into cold air through the fan coil units. Smart street lighting, LEDs can save up to 50% of the energy with compared to regular systems. These light poles can be, of course, also be equipped with sensors that actuate the lighting source as per the actual need. How many times do we pass by at streets at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and the street light is on? It's useless. It is a waste of energy, a waste of resource, while sometimes at 8 o'clock at dark night, they are not yet on. And that's then a lack of service. All this can be avoided if we have an automated system that measures the sun irradiation, the daylight provision, and adjusts the additional light energy to serve the roads or the facilities which we want to enlighten. Equipped can be, these lighting poles, of course, also with noise sensors, surveillance cameras, traffic sensors, small cells for energy, for example, and air quality sensors, and of course here also panels for traffic information. Smart water management. We have to stop waste of water. Water is a scarce commodity, especially here in Egypt. We know that very well. A smart water distribution system should be able to detect, for example, pipe leakages. It is estimated that the fresh water that runs through the potable water system that came from a natural source that has been treated with at high expense to become potable water is to a good part being lost, and I talk about 30 to 50% in large cities worldwide. It's not only here. Is lost to a good part simply due to leaks in the water network, and this has to be detected and they have to be repaired. So for this, sensors can be used to make sure that we have the minimum losses in this scarce commodity. Smart sewage system as well. There are also, of course, possibilities to improve and make sure that the treatment plants are charged with the minimum of sewage. And for example, stormwater, rainwater can be regained and is normally collected separately and not in a mixed system. I will go a bit faster. The time is running a little bit. Smart waste disposal systems. Cities are creating large amounts of waste, household waste and other kind of waste. And a smart bin system, for example, used in Holland, make sure that the bins are regularly relieved of the waste, but only when they are really full, so that the truck that cruises around to collect the bins waste is not running empty. Always at healthcare systems, ICT-based solutions could diagnose medical conditions and help prevent emergencies before it's too late, and would also enhance rescue services. Pollution control systems, of course, very important. The air quality, the water quality mainly, is an issue that needs to be monitored. And for example, should issue also information to the decision makers when, for example, to put restrictions on individual transportation and on industries. Sorry, that was wrong. So smart living and smart buildings. Coming now to a very important issue, buildings, and I will go a bit faster through this slide. Buildings are the biggest polluters and the biggest energy consumers. They consume roughly 40% of the energy of a country's economy. And this has to be controlled. And if we can reach at a certain saving, a significant saving in this 40%, then we have done a big step forward. That could be done, for example, through occupancy sensors, indoor service controls, building security and surveillance, indoor positioning systems, and also electrochromic windows and louvers, as shown in this picture. The building management system is basically a system that automatically issues a centralized control on the building systems, mainly the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, but also electricity, lighting, shading, access control, security systems, etc. These are systems that will help reducing the energy consumption. We talk mainly about energy, but also the water consumption of a building to a very high degree. Green buildings and smart buildings are not the same, but they have overlapping areas, and that also has relevance to the SDG number 11. A small breakdown here, I will go quickly through it. Buildings 40%, far larger than the transportation, which people always talk about, and also much larger than industries. These are the figures for the US, and mainly consumed in functions that deal with heat or cold. Air conditioning, heating, water heating, cooling, refrigerating, etc. These are the main consumers, and we have to work on reducing the consumption of those functions. There are large potentials of savings, and the graph shows here, for example, in lighting improvement in very large buildings, up to 80% of the energy could be saved. In HVAC, 60–70%. So you can see that there's a large potential of doing something. And if people say, well, we need a smart city, said, well, we can start with a smart building, even with a component of building, and then we have done a step forward.
And from there I see.
So just a small example here, a standard office building, for example.
At home? Receiving at home?
Hello? Yeah. A standard office building, for example, consumes per year 230 kilowatt hours of energy, while an optimized building would require only 1/4. So there's a big potential of doing something on these 40% only, and we are talking about private buildings. When a private investor should do something on this field, he will say, well, it's too expensive. I said, yes, these systems are not cheap, definitely, and they require significant investment. However, an energy reduction would also increase the property value. A facility, a building that requires less energy and would relieve the owner or the tenant of higher monthly bills is more attractive. And the value of this property will automatically rise, and the vacancy will go down because these buildings will be much sought after. Of course, these are a function, of course, also of the electricity price. But the electricity prices here in Egypt, they have basically scrapped the subsidies, and they will go up further, as we have seen in other places. And this will make these systems even more attractive. Even the banks and insurance companies in some places are beginning to reward energy efficiency with better financing and lower premiums due to lower risk of vacancy. A word on critical issues and challenges of smart applications, data protection regulations. The state has basically access to sensitive personal data. We have cameras, we have sensors, we have everything everywhere. And data protection and personal rights are to be considered as well. There are data protection regulations. The EU's General Data Protection Regulation of 2016. However, it protects only the individuals from misuse by public-private actors in the EU. It's not a worldwide valid regulation. The Cities Coalition for Digital Rights of 2018, and you can see all these initiatives are quite recent, issues at least shared principles for policymakers to safeguard digital rights. So these are not very many, but we have to be aware that with every new technology, there are lots of benefits and lots of potential to be used and to go into the right direction. On the other hand, we have to put the right rules into the game to make sure that there is no misuse, and we really take the benefits by avoiding the negative parts. So I think I have no time to go into details regarding our cases here: Singapore, Barcelona, Montreal, Dubai, and Egypt. They are not all the same. Singapore, for example, is a very technically driven place, and they are put the technology and the technical control in the forefront of their thinking. Barcelona is also technology driven, but also it goes into savings of resources, job creation, healthier environment. They are improving the city's income situation, for example, as I mentioned, the parking revenues. Montreal is approaching, like Helsinki, for example, to involve also the public into the urban decision making. So they want the public to be part of it. That goes into the direction of democratization. Dubai is technology driven. They're using a personalized approach, mainly collaboration. They are counting on public and private stakeholder collaboration, as streamlining for resources for maximum efficiency. So this is a mix of well-being and pure technology. Egypt, as I mentioned, we have ranked last year at place number 99 out of 102. That is not so impressive. However, the chance of improvement is also given, and a small advance in certain areas will move us forward from the place 99, hopefully very quickly. The government has issued the 2030 development agenda, sustainable development agenda. The initiatives to decentralize Cairo, for example, the new administrative capital and other new urban communities being built. And I would say, let us hope that these new areas and new urban centers will be also accepted and come to life. It's not only about building them, it's also about making them lively communities. In order to be smart, cities need to be sustainable and inclusive. That was a key message of the Ministry of Housing to the conference of the UN Habitat. And people work currently here in Egypt on an Egyptian smart city code. It's under consideration, and I'm quite hopeful that in the new communities, at least where it is relatively easier to implement smart applications than in already existing cities, like in old Cairo, for example, that we will see quite some improvements, and we can see the first ones already now. So in conclusion, along with the alarming phenomenon of rapid urban population growth and energy demands, there's an urgent need to develop and equip also existing cities with more sustainable functions based on smart applications, to reserve and optimize the usage of natural resources. Smart city infrastructure components present the key to more efficient urban services, enhanced living quality, more prosperous economic life, better resource sustainability, increased energy efficiency, and reduced waste and environmental emissions. That means we are meeting and hopefully safeguarding future generation demands. Like, as I said, with every new technology, we have lots of benefits, but we also must put into place the regulations and control mechanisms so that we take the benefits and not being exposed to a misuse. So these are my references, and I thank you for your attention. I'm a couple of minutes behind, but I hope.
Thank you very much. I think it was really interesting, Dr. Mahmoud, and I'm sure the audience benefited from my side. I also have a lot of questions. We are running a bit out of time, but I think we should. Michael has kindly allowed us to take a few minutes from his. We can obtain like 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Shall I stop?
If you can just stop the screen share. Yes, please.
The share.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, I don't know, let me start by opening the floor. I think this will be a general question from all of us. To what extent are smart cities green cities? So you said we wanted smart people for smart systems. So do we also need people to become more green, you know?
Yeah, first question, green and smart.
Are smart systems green?
Green and smart. Yeah, it's of course not the same, but there is no green city without smart elements. And most of the smart cities are automatically green. So there's a large overlapping area. I could go back to this slide where we need the intrusion of and the establishment of smart applications, for example, pollution control, water quality, air quality, where automatically the outcome will be greener. So I think they are almost going in concurrence. We can go to many details there, but I think important is the message: both cannot live without each other. Or let's say the green cannot live without smart. And if we are going smart, automatically we are going green. Then regarding the smart people, yes, of course. I mean, systems have to live from people. How many times have we seen new equipment, new applications, new systems, and nobody can use it? Yeah. So if we have street sensors, for example, it is very important that they are kept in function. So they have to be maintained. Sometimes, I mean, I've seen a lot of solar cell based street lamping posts, and unfortunately the solar cells were full of dust. So they have been installed with a good intention, but the maintenance idea has not been considered. Mm-hmm. And of course, that is regarding the operation of the system, and the usage of the system is, of course, I mean, I mentioned the issue of ICT. So we have to educate people to be able to make use of the large effect. So the educational part must be part of this whole approach.
Those two questions, and then Dr. Hadir and Rami. So Dr. Hadir, would you please start? Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud, for the very interesting presentation. I just have one question, talking about smart people as an important aspect of the smart cities. Do you think that user research or consumer research can add value in determining, for example, what aspects or what dimensions users would be willing to adopt, and what kind of barriers they might face in some other aspects? So do you think that user research might be valuable in this case?
Of course, definitely. I would say the best motivation to learn something is as soon as someone understands, yes, this approach will help me, will make my life easier. I can include myself. When I installed the CIB online banking, it saved me a lot of trips, physical trips. I can do something in 1 minute rather than go to my car, go to the next banking branch, staying in a queue. The whole trip will take me 2 hours. I do it in 1 minute. In the very beginning, I said I don't need it. I go the old way. So when I felt it, click. It was. And it should be done on a voluntary basis, not by force. People come into the position to really want it, and then the learning is very easy. For example, I remember 2011 we had suddenly this Biullak mobile service to tell us where is the traffic jam, and that was based on information from drivers. So this is only 10 years later already is, which looks like an old grandpa. So today we have done in few years huge advances, things we couldn't dream of. I mean, there was no navigation system 10 years ago. Yeah. So today I can go to any village in the Delta and use the GPS based guidance system, and it takes me really there. I tried it a couple of times. I was amazed in very remote places where people are very much used to it now. It's not something extraordinary anymore. And doing consumer research, of course. I mean, consumers try to get the best for their resources in terms of their own benefits. So that goes along. I'm quite optimistic that once people smell the benefit and really understand that it's a good thing to be used, and that it's getting them advantages, they will quickly pick it up. I'm quite optimistic for this.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud.
Rami, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
You have to unmute.
Yes, he's unmuted.
Yeah, I unmuted. It was just a problem with my audio settings. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hi again, Rami Sharkawi, International Business Teaching Assistant. I just had a quick question, because we know in our field, in management, we know that the Central Bank of Egypt is actually having an initiative that's been going on now for years, which is the FinTech Egypt. And this FinTech Egypt is basically an initiative that tries to drive one of the SDGs that we have in Egypt, which is or at least in our vision in 2030, which is for financial inclusion. And this one tackles a little bit more on the financial kind of development of financial technology that can include even eKYC and like online payments and solutions and so on. Do we have something on the construction side, or maybe something on the infrastructure development side that maybe is undergoing now in Egypt, or could be then somehow planned to be done further on in the future? Or do we not really have any kind of information or knowledge about this?
You mean using in the construction field functions like financial services, or?
No. Like, so we talked about smart cities basically, and we talked about the
Yeah.
new technologies that are basically then undergoing in different cities around the world, and then how can we transform then a city to become a little bit more smarter, right? So from our business side, we know that we have the Central Bank of Egypt is already undertaking some sort of an initiative that is trying to make payments or financial services a little bit smarter. Do we know if there are any undergoing projects right now or any kind of initiatives that are being taken, whether by building cities or in utilities management or in transportation?
I think in certain areas, yes. I mean, you have big advances also in e-government. You can pay your traffic fines. I could imagine, I don't know, but I could imagine that also building regulation associated fees could be paid online. The construction itself, I'm a little bit doubtful, but I could, for example, imagine if we are having smart people, then we can also talk about a smart traffic management. Construction is also a very disturbing industry. It requires large safety efforts. Look around what happens when they're opening anything in the area of the street. So these can be supported, of course, with smart elements. There can be support regarding more noise and dust emissions around construction sites. So construction normally has quite a big impact on the neighborhood, on the, for example, in the traffic area, and these can be supported by informing drivers, take care, 5 kilometers ahead, there's a large construction site, and the lanes will go down from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, whatever. So this can be used and should be used, but it needs both sides. It is the public side that has to install and operate the system, and it's the private side or the individual side that must be able and trained to use this information in the right way. Yeah, so this is, yeah, no, I see. I mean, applications are everywhere. We have to install them and we have to use them.
I think
is this answering your question?
I think, Dr. Mustafa, you want to comment? So maybe a final comment?
Yes, just if I understand right, Rami's question was about if construction has some initiatives that are going in terms of being smart. And I think we have one really good thing in Egypt. It's called Building Information Modeling, BIM. It's part where you start using technology to visualize the whole project. It's being implemented in Alamein, in administrative city, new capital, where you can visualize the whole thing before starting, before investing anything on ground. All the designer, the client, the owner sit together and they do like a twin digital model of the whole project. And this really saves time, saves later. Professor Mahmoud, of course, knows about because we share the course in that at GUC where we teach something about building fresh modeling. Okay.
Yeah, let me
Thank you, Dr. Mustafa.
comment. Okay, I misunderstood your question a little bit. The BIM is the new future, is the future, and let's say the new generation. I would compare it drafting manually and then going to a CAD system, or known as AutoCAD as one brand. So the digital drafting of a building, and now we are moving forward and modeling a building with all its functions and components, and this will allow us to model also not only the technical building in 3D, but also the operation of the building. We know how much the heat transfer through the facade system will be, and we can calculate before we start building the power consumption of the building, and then we can optimize the building and we can avoid many mistakes. So this is, of course, a very large step forward. We call it the digital building or digital part of the industry, basically, so that you're doing things ahead. You can plan, you can do the entire process before you touch only one brick. And this is if the time is given and the employer, the owner, understands those benefits. Part of the education, the employer has to become smart as well. He cannot say, well, I don't give you time. That is, of course, impossible. I have to give people the opportunity to do all their research work ahead, to do the homeworks, and then the construction will go much smoother, much faster, and I would say even at less cost and much better quality. Okay.
Thank you, professors, very much for this very interesting panel. I think it gave us all a very interesting perspective that we didn't have before. And it shows us the interdisciplinarity of this issue of sustainable development and maintaining sustainable cities or building back greener. If you also can relate this to post-COVID-19 or a post-COVID-19 world, you know, where we want to build back smarter and greener. So I think this was very interesting.